Once again, you're most welcome and greetings to everyone that has joined us on this episode of Community Voices on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Mulisa. On this episode, we are discussing the subject rather not so good to our health as individuals, as a country, and citizens of the world. And we want to how we can live in this world healthy, secure, confident, and with love. And what we're talking about is how we as people in the communities can ensure vigilance in response to terror threats. I know that this country, Uganda, and by extension, the region, the continent, and the entire world has had this challenge of terrorism for quite some time. And when you look at Uganda, for example, the most recent activity we've had in the countries, for example, last year we lost a couple of people in Kamwenge to terrorists that penetrated into the country, killed about 10 people in that particular part of the country. We had attacks to tourists. I think we had 2 tourists in Queen Elizabeth National Park that had come to have their honeymoon in Uganda. They were targeted and attacked and killed, and the vehicle burned together with their tour guide. We also had another incident in Kampala here when around 2021, when 2 bombs went off, one at the Central Police Station and the other at the Parliament, near the Parliament building. We lost about 3 people. We had more than 30 injuries, property, cars burned, and buildings. Lots of examples can be mentioned, going as far as the one that happened in Kasese, where terrorists attacked a school and slaughtered, murdered young children, young pupils that were at school, about 40 of them, and other community members. Anyone can go back to 2010, the bombings we had in the country, the World Cup season. People were enjoying World Cup at Chadondo, and we know what happens. The story is not as beautiful as it should be for country, as beautiful as Uganda. And we want to make an assessment of all these activities, but also now when we're in a situation where we have a series of alerts and conversations from the security corridors talking to us about the vigilance. They talk about the foiled terrorism activity in the country. Every once in a while, police is telling us there is an activity that has been foiled in this particular part of the country. We had one in Luero. We've had several of them in Kampala here. We've had many in Western Uganda. And, you know, being a community of people that are so loving and welcoming, we find ourselves vulnerable to the activities that can happen around that particular subject. And indeed, you will help me in the next 1.5 hours or so to make a conversation and see how our communities can really survive and be peaceful and be secure, even when we have some very bad elements on earth that do not enjoy the peace and safety of very many other citizens of the world. But before we get into that conversation, it is really important to get to know each other so well. And we shall use the next about 5 or so minutes to really talk to each other about ourselves, about where we are here. For example, I'm almost at the city center. If I share with you what I have here, it is quite sunny. My view here is I can view in the far old Kampala Hill, I can see Mwirima Hill, I can see Rubaga Hill, and then the far I can see the tax parks, the buildings of Kampala here. I can see Nachivo Stadium, and there's a couple of other landmarks I can talk about. And it's a very beautiful day we have here, and I expect each of you to at least share with us a glimpse of where you are and what we can get to know about your particular environment, and specifically the weather patterns. For example, in the last 1 week, how is it from your particular location before we get into the depth of the conversation? I will start with let me start with the lady, because in this country we keep saying ladies first. So the lady is going to share with us first about herself, but also her particular location. Yes, Faith. Greetings, you're welcome. Talk to us.
Thank you so much. I am Faith Luggo. I'm currently a resident of Mbale, but today they caught me in Magale, close to Kenya, that is Eastern Uganda. The weather is it's cool, and I believe it's going to be a bright day ahead. I am a teacher of who is not practicing currently, currently working with children in compassion. I am a patriot and an instructor in patriotism, and I think that's all I can say about myself, unless there's anything I have to add.
Good enough. Thank you so much, Faith, teacher from where you are. You say you're near Kenya. That's interesting, and we can't wait to hear more about that community's behaving, especially at a time when we are talking about terrorism and a couple of other unfortunate instances that keep happening in our society. Thank you, Faith. Let me bring in Alison. Alison, greetings, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Philip. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning. Greetings.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Alison Kwizera. I'm both an economist and a specialist in occupational safety and health. My current location is Lira city. Those who don't know Lira, that is where the former president, Dr. Milton Obote, was coming from. That is all.
Thank you so much, Alison from Lira, from that beautiful city of this country. And of course, very special you mentioned that it is home to former President Dr. Milton Obote, and no one can indeed underscore the contribution he had to the development of this country. Very key to mention is his contribution in the cotton, tourism, and the economy of cities. It was very critical in the growth of this country, but also a series of other contributions. Thank you so much, Alison. Let's speak to Mike. Mike, greetings, you welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, moderator. Once again, Mike is Mike is my name. Mike Kasoola is my name. I'm a professional and practicing accountant. I'm also a farmer and based in Bulambuli. Greetings to you all, my friends. Greetings to the gentleman from Lira. Lira is one of the places I've liked so much. It's a very, very nice people, very welcoming, and I always like to have a chat with such people. So the gentleman from Lira, thank you so much for being part of this important discourse, and I hope we shall be meeting frequently thereafter. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mike, for that introduction, and greetings to the people in Mbale, that beautiful city as well. It is one of the places we usually talk about when we talk about coffee, when we talk about anything in the sector of tourism, the Elgon areas and so on. It is a beautiful place.
Actually, Bulambuli means tourism. For those who did not know, Bulambuli comes from the word Obulambuzi. Obulambuzi is tourism. So those who don't know Bugisu is one of the most beautiful areas in this country and the world at large.
Thank you so much for that, Bulambuli. Interesting direct there, and it is important that we actually get to name our places in relation to how they look like for what they have to offer. very interesting to mention, and thank you so much, Mr. Mike Kasoola. Now, colleagues, as I know we shall have a couple of other one or two people joining us, but let's start the conversation. Terrorism, and I should start with Alison, since you deal in safety and health, much as it is not directly in the security threat we talk about, but ideally when you talk about safety and we're discussing terrorism and having strings of people who are willing to go an extra mile of injuring, killing, destroying property in a society like Uganda. When you listen to this and how the threats are unfolding in the country, but also the region, how do you respond to such individuals that have taken heart to be part of such activity in our society? Yes, Alison.
Thank you, Philip. My field, you might say, by the look, think that it is not related to security, but most by the word safety, it directly goes to security. Terror threats have not started now, they have been there ever since we were young. And if I can remember, my first time to hear about terrorism was 2001. I think by then I was in primary 6. That was September 11, twin tower bombing in the US by the Al-Qaeda. So basically it has been there, it has been affecting people. And what we should know, it mostly happens when people are unaware. So this means that we need to be always careful and on the watch for any possible risk causing or possible dangerous activities or objects that might harm our lives.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alison, for that overview, but also letting us know that you actually directly linked to the particular field we're talking about, something to do with safety and security. The two really work interchangeably. I want to bring in Mr. Kasoola, Mike. Mr. Mike, the community you live in, how much do they know about this terrorism, and how do they respond when they hear such conversations about threats and how things can actually happen the wrong way in their society? Yes, ma'am. Mike, do I have you? Mike, are you able to hear me?
Yes, please. I'm able to hear you, sir. Hello?
Yes, Mike. Talk to us about your community. How much do they know about this vice called terrorism, and what conversations really go around in our communities around this particular subject?
Well, terrorism, the challenge we have in our community is failure to define what terrorism is. Actually, strictly speaking, terrorism does not refer to those who are accessing power. First of all, terrorism is a violence, intimidation, especially geared towards unarmed civilians, people who don't have anything to do with arms. Now, the challenge we have is the way we define terrorism in this country leaves our people not understanding who is a terrorist and who's not. We have had we hear about the Islamic terrorists, people who are fighting to access power, and they are not very silent, they are quite silent about what the motive is, but the big motive is people want to access power through violence. These are people who are scared of accessing power through legal means or constitutional means. They decide to use violence to access power. And this is what you hear. It does not matter where they come from, whether the people coming from Pakistan and going to bomb America, whether the people coming from Pakistan and bombing Africa, all is about accessing power. So, well, how far do we understand terrorism in our community? I think people need more education. People need education because these people use various tactics to achieve their motives. Some use religion, some use ideology, some claim they are underprivileged and therefore they have to access, they want to be privileged also like other people. And then, most importantly, strictly speaking, the countries themselves, the states themselves are terrorists to their people. A state that does not allow accessing power through democratic means or retaining power through democratic means qualifies to be called a terrorist state. It is actually terrorizing its own people. Well, we have been having scenarios like what happened in Luggo. According to reports, we were told these are terrorists from external sources. We also had another terror incident in Kansanga where many younger people died, innocent younger people died. Like now you hear what happened recently in Israel where 1,200 people were abducted, some of them killed, some of them raped. All that is terrorism and it is aimed at accessing power. The Palestinians believe that they are marginalized, they are disenfranchised, they are demeaned, they are humiliated. So what they are doing is to use any means within their reach to terrorize those they feel are denying them power. Now look at the situation in what happened in Kasese here. That one qualifies to be terror, although it was done by the state. Because if you go and kill 120 people, young children, women, innocent, unarmed men, what does that qualify? What do we call that? That is terrorism. So the question was, how far do people understand? People in Bulambuli, people in Bugisu understand what we call terrorism. There is little understanding because of confusion around. The person who has got the microphone, and that is the state, has got its own definition of terrorism. But terrorism simply means either accessing or even retaining power using any democratic means. Anybody, some of the states, anybody who wants to access power is looked at as an enemy, but not a citizen. So we need to do a lot of sensitization. We needed to do a lot of sensitization. We need to do a lot of sensitization. We need to do a lot to make sure that people understand what terrorism is all about.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike, for that really detailed explanation of terrorism, but also giving us examples of what you think actually terrorism is, but also giving us a view of what you think can enable the community to understand this particular situation better. Faith, when you listen to Mike and Alison, they try to talk to us about terrorism and how it plays out in their communities. From where you see it in your community, how do you and indeed the people in your community understand this particular phenomena called terrorism, and what conversations are drawn around this particular subject? Yes, Faith.
Okay, thank you so much. In my community, I think there is almost no clear understanding of terrorism. This terrorism thing looks to be international to them. They think that it's maybe involved with other countries that are outside Uganda that are involved in it. Possibly it's about Muslims, possibly. I think the biggest misconception about my community is possibly when they see someone dressed like a Muslim, maybe covered up with long beards, that's how they draw a picture of a terrorist.
What is the source of this sort of stereotype relating it to Muslims? What is the source of this particular way of interpretation?
I think sometimes it's the media, because most of the time, what comes up on the news and brings out Muslims as people who are terrorists. And when you clearly follow the list of the people they suspect, you find that it is aligned to a certain kind of dress code, a certain kind of bodybuilder. Maybe you have a lot of beards, that kind of thing. And that's how my community views a terrorist. First of all, on a layman's description of terrorism, they do not understand that terrorism is within the community and it can happen wherever they are. It's just like an alien to them. They really think that's something that is very far, maybe in Somalia, other countries that have already experienced that. And that's why you find that they are so much exposed to the risk when it comes to terrorist attacks. People believe that it is quite far from them, and it's a misconception, I can say. The community in which I live is not vigilant about it, I can say. They think that's quite far away, and there are no measures at all. Like they have put measures for maybe theft, maybe for other bad acts, and they have not thought about the measures of curbing terrorism in the community. So they are almost blank. It's only a paper thing, I can say. Most people, is someone speaking? Okay, most people that know about terrorism are the ones that are somehow educated and can say they are literate, and all they know about it is from a paper point of view. It's not very practical to them, and they don't have practical evidence concerning terrorism, except for the few that have happened, and people referring to them without knowing they'll come back to their community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith, for that overview of how your community looks at this particular subject. And it's quite unfortunate that, among other things, there's a stereotype about a particular religion or a stereotype about a particular way of dress, but also a couple of other scenarios you talk about there. I want to bring in Alison once again. Alison, you see, terrorism is not one of the activities or jobs you're interested in working in, because you know that you are an enemy of everyone, but also the state and the international community is looking for you because you're a bad element in their lens. Why do people end up choosing to become terrorists? So for that matter, any other related activity they do that is injurious to society? Why? Alison, you can hear me? Something with your sound, I don't seem to pick it so well. Not yet, not yet. I think as Alison tries to clear up on his, I think he has some technical challenges that he's trying to address with the team here. They're trying to work out a way to see that he joins us quite well and clear. Meanwhile, let me welcome Muhindo Francis Happy. Francis, you're most welcome, and we are happy to have you happy, and we want you to join in the conversation. Greetings, and how are you, Mr. Happy?
Thank you, friends. I'm sorry for joining in late, but I'm here. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you so much, and I want to quickly bring you in this subject of terrorism. First of all, what is its reception in your community, in your environment, and how much do people know about this particular threat in our society? Francis, you hear me?
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Again, my name is Francis, in a humanitarian setting in Bulambuli refugee settlement. Talking about the Rwenzori region, that is Kasese. I come from a community that has lived in war, in conflict, in terrorism, as way back 1927. So there have been civil wars, there have been interethnic wars, there have been changes of governments which have their bases or plans in the Rwenzori Mountain. So the people of the place of my community, people of Kasese, Bulambuli, and for Kabarole, Greater Kabarole District, for Portland Large, have lived in conflict, and one, they are always aware of terrorism and war. They are able to read the signs. Some of the members have actively participated in these rebel groups, including the NRA rebel group that is now NRM currently. So it is a society that is aware of terrorism. It's a society that has partially actively and or passively participated in acts of terrorism. And they are also aware of how government has responded to war and also acts of terrorism, both local and external terrorism. So it's a society that is aware of the terrorism situation in Uganda and in the jungles of the neighboring country, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. For now, that's what I can submit for the question.
Thank you so much, Happy, for that overview. And it's really sad and really amazing to hear that how things try to unfold in their particular societies. Alison, are you able to hear me now? Alison, are you able to hear me? Say something.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I was asking you, why would anyone be willing to participate in a trade as risky as terrorism?
Okay, I had some errors, but I think they are now sorted out. Mostly when you look at these other groups, they look different in the way of their setup. When you look at, for example, in Somalia, these boys, what they call the Al-Shabaab, because you see, Al-Shabaab in their language is called, they are youth. It means youth. So the study shows that a large proportion of most of their recruits was because of the economic hardships they were facing during that time. So that one becomes one of the major reasons why some people join these acts of terrorism. Then two, there's that element of religion. The previous speaker talked about religion, and we have seen that some groups are using religion, to a big portion, Islam, as a tool to join these terrorism activities. Others are forced, what they call the assimilation. This assimilation was those days used by the French. You are adopted, or you are taken by these people. Then they have to assimilate you. They have to force you to be part of them. That's what I've seen in the Democratic Republic of Congo. These people are taking young children, so that related into these activities. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you.
Okay. Basically, that is what I can give you on the factors forcing people into terrorism.
Thank you so much. And it's very critical. You talk about a series of things, including some, for example, you mentioned the Al-Shabaab and having been youth. But when you dig deep in the history, they tell you this was a youth wing of a particular political party that had been overthrown from leadership. And they said, no, this is not fair to us. And indeed, we have to go and fight for our rights. And indeed, when you look into earlier conversations from, for example, Mike was still talking to us about how leadership in one way or the other is fueling the emergence of such activities. And I want to get you back, Mike, on that particular issue. When we talk about terrorism, and he talks about the youth, he talks about the religion, he talks about a series of why would someone get so convinced be willing to join a terror group, for example, Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, or for that matter, rebel group? Well, knowing this is a matter of life and death.
Well,
Yes, Mike.
this whole thing of terrorism is about power, nothing else. It's about power. Power in any form. We have had recently, actually, there were media reports showing that a lady cut off genitals of a husband. I think that was somewhere in Busoga. We had there's a certain woman who was put in jail. She has actually serving a prison sentence for having killed the husband, and it is claimed that the whole thing was about wealth. And many of similar cases But the bottom line is that whatever is done under the guise of religion, under the guise of tribe, under the guise of ideology, is to enable a group of people access power. By the way, terrorism should not be understood in the way that we commonly see. The people coming and, with guns and entering a supermarket and then killing people, the groups coming with bombs and detonating them in a crowded video hall. Many issues. By the way, it goes far. Sometimes even a state can terrorize its people. They come and say, yes, this man is a member of the Uganda People's Congress and he has the capacity to access power. Then they look around you and see, what does this man have? He has a fat bank account, that one can be frozen. He has this business, they should deny him business as a state. All that can be done. They can even deny you freedom to speak on a radio. They come and surround the radio and, no, we don't want you to talk. And then you say, but why? They have a constitutional right to speak. They say, no.
Because you see, Mike, and what you say is quite interesting, and I want to know, where do we draw the line between acts of terrorism, especially when related to the state, vis-a-vis what the state is legally mandated to do in terms as related to the constitutional international law?
Yeah, for instance, when you look at Chapter 4 of the National Constitution, the Ugandan Constitution, 1995, Chapter 4, right from, I think, from Article 1 up to Article 55, it talks about the rights of individuals, rights of people, rights of citizens. But some states, like Uganda in particular, don't respect those rights. And these are constitutional rights. So you can see how even states can violate their own constitutions, which they want the citizens to respect. If Kyagulanyi, for instance, Honorable Kyagulanyi, went to a radio wanting to discuss politics, which is a constitutional right, you will see tear gas around, you will see armed people around, you will see members coming around. And then what do you call that? Is that protection of liberty? Is that protection of freedoms? I think that is terrorism in the strict sense of terrorism. So I want the public to understand the dichotomy of what a terrorist is and what constitutional, what the other side, the lawful side is. We shouldn't mix up, refer to terrorism as the people from Somalia, people from Pakistan, Muslims. Why would I anyway hate my friend who's a Muslim? My mother is from a Muslim background. You get it? I'm from a Christian background. I've never seen anything wrong with that. Kasoola, I have a lot of friends who are Muslims. I have a number of them who are even atheists, but we agree. There's nothing that is in religion that should let somebody pick a machete and cut off a neck of another. So these are issues that we must clearly define, and so that we separate and know who's a terrorist and who's not a terrorist.
Thank you so much, Mike, for
some of those.
Thank you, Mike. I will engage you a little later about that particular one. I want to bring in Faith here. Faith, earlier you talked to us about your community and how people are not very much aware indeed, and of course the stereotypes that exist in your community or about the Islam. But I want you to speak to the politics, because when you listen to the qualifications of Mike here, he tells us it is basically a struggle for power. Whenever people want to have access to power, then they engage in activities that are dangerous, that are fatal, that are illegal, that can be classified as terrorism. Do you agree with that assessment from Mike? But also, is it so important that every other member must access power in their own way of trying to find fairness and justice in society? Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I critically listened to my brother's explanation, and I can say I partially agree with the fact that terrorism, one of the causes of terrorism is a struggle for power. But we cannot limit ourselves to only politics and power and political parties. There is something that is beyond just the struggle for power. Come to talk about the young children that are recruited into terrorist groups. Some of them are picked up innocently, and the only thing they do is to work on their emotional or their mental part of the body. And these people get into the terrorist world specifically not for power. Sometimes people get into terrorism to somehow spill their anger against someone, or maybe they didn't have a very good childhood, and you'll find a child killing, slaughtering others just because they have been put in that kind of mentality that they should kill. I do not have a bias on the Muslim religion, and I really love those people so much. I have nothing wrong with them, against them. But we are not saying all Muslims are the ones engineering or fueling terrorism. Oh, neither can we limit it to only religion of Muslims. But you find that the people who come out to terrorize others, to kill, possibly use the religion bit of it, maybe whether they are Muslims or not. And I would like to put this disclaimer that not all Muslims are terrorists, and neither are all terrorists Muslims. So sometimes you find that frustration of people is put back through killing, through terrorizing others, and we shall not limit it to only use of arms. Terrorism can be done in so many ways. There's a use of machetes, use of strangling, and so many other things. I possibly agree with him to some extent, but I will not say it is absolutely about the struggle for power. You'll find that some of these terrorist attacks come just as maybe a mindset. If you find that people are taught how to hate others, let's say it's just a mentality that people are taught. You find the young children, you find mature being taught that if you find a woman, do this to her. If you find a Mugisu, kill. If you find it's actually evident in our Bugisu region. You find that there is terrorism, not use of arms, but our friends, sorry to mention, but from the Karamojong area, the ones that come to raid cattle, whatever, they do a lot of killing, and a number of they kill in masses, especially that area of Bulambuli where my brother Mike comes from. So they are not basically coming for power, but they have been trained, they have been told, their mindset is totally static, that for you to get anything, you have to kill. So I think that's the submission.
Thank you so much, Faith. And that brings me to Francis. Francis, when you try to connect the conversation between Mike and Faith here, you pick something related to economics. When you talk about, for example, the rates she talks about, when you talk about the conversation Mike gave us earlier, and indeed, when you look at a series of reports internationally, they tell you there is a lot of money in this venture. They will tell you how much money is spent by these major terrorist organizations. They will tell you how much money is given to suicide bombers. They will tell you it seems lucrative. Could money be one of the things that are luring, especially young people, into this particular vice of terrorism? Yes, Francis. Francis, do I have you? Francis? As I think Francis has some technical challenges that can be addressed. Let's look at addressing them, and as we wait for him to clear up and make things look out. I think I'll go back to Alison, but if I get to Alison, I think Mike has something. Quickly, Mike, I think you have a response to Mike. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted to do some reaction to what my sister Faith was talking about. When you see children armed, it is not that the children themselves want power. The children are being used by those who are interested in getting power, accessing power through democratic means. I will give you an example. We had boys and girls at the age of even 9, 7, carrying guns. I happened to be in the Rural Triangle during the struggle for power by President Museveni. You could find younger boys, younger girls carrying bazookas on their shoulders, carrying pistols, and they are swearing that no, we must remove Obote from power, or we must remove Tito Okello from power. And then when you asked those children what exactly they understood about power, they were angazed. They didn't know what power was. But their leader, the architect of all this, who was the President Museveni, is the one who used them so that he could access power. When you find women, we have these women who are generals now in the army. Some of them died, some of them were kadogos, some of them have retired. Not that they really wanted power themselves, they were being used by somebody who was promising them that under me, everything will be good for you. So they pick arms and fight. Then the issue of Karamoja, money. When these people come to raid in Bugisu, when they come to raid in Kapchorwa, when they come to raid in Lango, they are all coming to access money. Cows are money. And the power is not necessarily political power. They want financial power. So let's not confuse. Let's dissect power. What type of power are we talking about? Somebody can fight to access financial power. When I've been seeing on social media, some guys, entering a supermarket and, they gun down the shopkeepers and attendants and they access millions of shillings. That is power. They want money and that is power to them, financial power. So that is the clarification I wanted to us to understand, that when we talk about power, we're not talking about the president.
It's very interesting, and I don't know whether Francis is now able to hear me. Francis, are you able to hear me? Francis? So I think Francis is still having a couple of challenges, but as we try to rectify them, I'll bring in this.
I get you very well.
Francis, you hear me?
Yes, I do.
So thank you. We're trying to pick your view on the contribution of money and economics in this particular subject of terrorism. How much is money involved in the bit of trying to motivate the people into terror activities in our society? And this has a background of a series of reports that we've looked at where these terror organizations have a lot of money in banks, they do a lot of trade, and some people have come to say, oh, this is actually more of a business than any other thing we think about. What is your view of that?
Thank you. Just simply like the precurrent speaker just put it, terrorism and money are inseparable. I want to give an example away from Uganda, the example of Eastern Congo. Eastern Congo is a mineral-rich area, and people who die in this area per day are more than even the cows that would be slaughtered on Christmas. These people, one, those who are not engaged in mineral business have a lot of cocoa. There is a lot of timber in the area, and that's where the terrorism in Congo is concentrated. Simple. So someone will also want to control the borders of Uganda along the Congo line to effect that business flow. And you know, we have youth who are disgruntled, youth who have studied or not even studied, but who are generally unemployed. So it is easy to mobilize them into any terror attack. Of course, we are looking at terrorism, which at one point grows when there is a lot of violent extremism. So the issue of money is very key in this. One, people have to move from place to place to terrorize. They need to have gadgets to use. They need to have people to buy in order to terrorize a group or a specific person. And they also have to terrorize specific places, either to get money to facilitate them to do their missions. So money and terrorism are really very inseparable. I have been listening to a few stories, especially at the Mpondo border, of those people who are rescued by the UPDF in this Operation Shuja. Or even some, I happen to have been at the seminary, or in St. John's Seminary, where they abducted students. And you know, the returnees will tell you, these people trade in dollars. They give you money. Go and do this. Go and do this. So you are able to kill someone because you have been given $500 just to kill. There is no mother, you don't have any relative there. Your work is to kill whoever you found. So there's a lot of money that is in these terrorist companies, and money is separate from these terrorists or terrorist groups. Yeah, just like any other arrangement. If Uganda, for example, is going to the Somalia, there has to be a budget. Whether going to protect Somalia, going to protect Congo, going to protect, and you know, there has to be money involved. So yeah, that's what I can say from my side.
Thank you so much, Francis, for that interesting overview of the involvement of money in the subject of terrorism. Alison, you see, all these conversations can go on and on because we know at least on every day there is a terror activity somewhere in the world, not just in Uganda. Just this week we had a very terrible attack in Kabul, that is the capital of Afghanistan. We had attacks in as far as Europe, in the United States, talk about Asia. Many of them you can talk about, and the conversation of what is happening cannot end. But at a certain point, we need to talk about how we can eliminate or reduce on this particular vice in our society. Looking to Uganda, for example, the ADF keeps attacking us day in, day out. Children killed, mothers killed, fathers killed, property destroyed. How can we, first at the level of the community, but also government, work together to see that we eliminate this threat of terrorism in our community? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Philip. First of all, let me begin by differing from the speaker who said that the government can terrorize its people. It cannot. Only that we categorize that as maybe injustice and internal political factors that force people into these terror attacks as a way of retaliation.
Sanitize something that is rather so ugly when a government, for example, goes ahead and kills its citizens for whichever reason. A government should not kill its citizens.
We have not seen that. That one becomes injustice, maybe due to other reasons. So it's this kind of activities maybe that force people into involvement in injustice, or rather in terror attacks, into terrorism. Like when you see in Sudan, that is the Darfur region. The Greater Sudan was having what they call the Janjaweed, which was terrorizing these other people in the south just because of oil. So this goes back to his argument that they're all struggling for economic power, political power, and the need for identity.
But you see, Alison, now, and you bring in a very interesting example. When you look at the Janjaweed, of course, in their initial areas, they worked independently. But when you look at a time when now President Bashir, at the time, used this Janjaweed to terrorize the groups of people in Darfur that did not agree with him. And by extension, even when you bring it today, when you look at what is happening in Khartoum and neighboring areas where Burhan and Hemeti are fighting and bombing civilians and killing them, is that not terrorism to the people of Sudan?
Yes, this kind of terror group was formed when these other people of South Sudan were fighting for identity due to the politics of ideology, religion, identity that these people of the North were different from these ones in the South. So when these other ones, due to this kind of injustice, started fighting back, this is when we see the Janjaweed being formed to terrorize these ones in the oil region. So going back to your question, the government needs to, it cannot fight alone. Because when you look at the statistics here in Uganda, you find out that currently we have about 52,000 police officers, vis-a-vis the population of 45 million, as per the statistics of 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So meaning we have a ratio of 1 police officer to about 450 people. So you see there is a gap in terms of numbers. So meaning, when you move ahead, 225 police officers for every 100,000 people, still you see a gap in security. So this is where community involvement makes sense. The community in this way has to be empowered and trained. So we look at the three things where we find we have awareness, promotion, and education of the community. How do you promote awareness? This can be done through awareness campaigns. It can be on televisions. It can be newspapers. It can be on radios, because these radios reach the biggest part of the country. It can be on internet, through social media. We have seen police sending alerts to those who are on Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms. What do you put in these campaigns? Teach people the sources of these terrors, what kind of areas are targeted by these terrorists, what kind of behaviors to look for, in case it happens, because at times we have seen countries which are more security cautious still being caught on off guard. So what if it happens? What do the community do? What do you expect the community to do? So all that should be given to the community. Information should be available to help them be prepared. The second point is building a strong communication network. This is the most important, because people must be informed. So how do we do this? There must be community alert systems within our communities. Apart from reporting to the police or what, there must be these kind of systems where, in case of any suspicious object activity, it is easily communicated to the responsible institutions as quick as possible. And then there is also supposed to be a neighborhood watch program.
Briefly, as you
If I may pose a question to all of us here, you may find you don't know even the name of your neighbor, or even the face.
very much. That's so common here in Kampala. Very many people do not know their neighbors, friends, workmates, etc.
So exactly. So it shows you that there is still a big gap. Even if you found any suspicious activity in the neighborhood, you are unable to communicate simply because you don't know the person. So such programs help people to get to know each other, to communicate to each other most oftenly. In this way, information is got at a convenient time.
Thank you.
There's also need to collaborate with the security authorities.
Okay, we'll conclude with that point quite briefly because time is running so fast.
Sorry?
Yes, Alison, make that point.
Pardon, please. wasn't hearing you.
Make that point as you conclude. Make that point as you conclude.
The previous point?
No, that point you're
Philip,
making.
let me finalize with this. Need for collaboration between the community and the police. We have to trust these people so that we can get help. Because if I may ask each and everyone here, you may find that no one knows the emergency line for police in case of anything. So there is that kind of need to develop a relationship between the security and the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alison Kwizera, for those recommendations. And indeed, I think some, if not all of them, if taken up, can be so instrumental in trying to alleviate this particular challenge. Mike, I see you have a hand up, but also it's your time to talk to us. How do you think we can fight this particular vice from our community? Because as a community, we need to survive. Yes, Mr. Kasoola.
Yeah, before I go to way forward or solutions to this terror problem, I wanted to react to my friend Hudson, who say that a state cannot terrorize its people. You know, some of these things are used by propagandists to justify their evil. Saddam Hussein used to kill his people using gas, the Kurds, his citizens. What do you call that? That's an internal contradiction, yes. It's terror. You know, when you talk about justice and injustice, maybe if a community is denied education, if it is denied food, if it is denied roads, you can say that is injustice. But when you get weapons and kill people who are not armed, like what happened in Iraq during the time of Saddam Hussein, it qualifies to be terrorism. When you go to Kasese, find young children, babies, you find women unarmed, you find men who are unarmed, and you surround them and butcher them. That is terrorism, because the state has the capacity to contain any challenges without necessarily killing its people. Why don't you surround them? If you got a battalion of people and then you surround the Kasese and say, well, we want you to surrender, what will they do? And you have these children saved, these women saved, these innocent unarmed civilians saved. That one is nothing short of terror. That is purely terrorism. Well, look at what happened in Myanmar, what happened in former Burma. You know, elections are held, a president is elected, and then somebody says in the army says, no, we want power. And then you kill as many as you can. And then you also create a contradiction, because those who were interested in democracy decided to go back to go to the bush and then fight the regime. And then now, these ones who are being fought are referring to the fighters as terrorists. No, that is not true. So when we are, sometimes we want to sugarcoat, and there's a time when in this country, there was a narrative that if you are a multi-partist, you are evil. It used to be very funny. You know, some people even could not associate with you But a multipartist is simply a person of divergent views from yours. He's saying, no, this is the direction opposite from yours. So these are some of the things that are used, and you confuse our community more. I want us to be very, very open that a state can be a terrorist to its own people, kill its people. You know, you get vehicles, police vehicles running over civilians who want a change, and then you say that is injustice. That is terrorism. So, but the way forward is this. You cannot have your cake and at the same time eat it. You can't eat it and have it at the same time. If you attempt to go to politics, then accept that there are people who disagree with you. So what you do is you democratize systems. Systems which are more democratic. There is a study that shows that systems that are more democratic, including homes, you find a lot of less infighting, and so on and so forth. Children obey their fathers, the mother obeys the husband, and vice versa. But where there is no injustice, a man, you know, when he speaks, nobody should answer, nobody should have a different view. There's the terror. When he comes back at home, children run and hide under beds. You know, you get a lot of confusion, and at the end of the day, disharmony, and the people go on their own, and the whole system is disorganized. So the way forward is we should have democracy. At the bottom line, democracy is very important. A country like a state like United States, if it did not have democracy with all these big populations and the, you know, problem. So that's why I'm saying democracy is the bottom line, and then other things can come in, like sensitization of the population and giving them freedom and justice.
Thank you so much, Mike, for that recommendation, and we hope it is one that can be taken up somewhere, and we see sanity returning to our society and indeed the world faith. How do we as a community work together to see that this threat is actually eliminated from ourselves and live peacefully and in love and harmony as faith?
Okay, thank you so much. I would start with on a grateful note, especially in Uganda. I think the government has tried as much to stop this terrorism. All the terrorism we are getting in Kenya and the neighboring countries, they are almost unheard of in our country. And that's why you find that some of the citizens don't even know what terrorism is. So I think we should not mix up politics and terrorism and torture. Those are quite different things. But and then as the community, I believe that the community should be vigilant first. There is no way the government shall come from wherever, or the police, to come and curb terrorism unless the community is vigilant. It starts with the person, that one person that is in a football, let's say attending a football match, to know that my neighbor or someone that I've seen around me is quite suspicious. So if they do not identify such people, then by the time police comes in, by the time the government comes in, we would have lost a number of people already. So the community should be really vigilant and alert to know who is suspicious or whatever has been planned. You find that in some communities, people are being trained in houses, indoors, and what. And it is possibly true that the community people are the ones that say, there is someone who has hidden some boys somewhere in a room. I think police should come and check on them, possibly find that they are in such acts of terrorism, trainings, and all that kind of. And then I believe that there should be a community security team. The government has given us VHTs that everyone knows about, village health teams, what if the security teams are also there? It would be very, very important. I can testify to one of the communities that I live in. Before police comes, we have teams that move around security at night. It's actually voluntary. But what if the government puts such a section whereby there are people that are deployed specifically for community policing? By the time police comes in, at least that can be a little bit handled or tamed to a level waiting for security organs to vein in. I also think that the community should also be patriotic. I believe patriotism is a very important vacuum. Putting aside the misconceptions that people have about patriotism, people think that patriotism is NRM, government, but patriotism itself is the love for the country. So if someone in the community has been trained and is aware that I must love my country, or if they naturally love their country, then there will be no need for someone to raise up and say, I am butchering my neighbor, I am going to put a bomb in a certain market, because there is that natural love that someone has. And it starts with the community, it starts with individuals before moving out to the police. I was also imagining that if there is a toll-free, like my brother communicated earlier on, for violence, I've seen the Saudi, and it has somehow been publicized and people know about it. But what if we have those toll-free lines that we can quickly call with a specialized department for terrorism? It's good we have the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2004 that 2002, sorry, that the country is following. But what if we go down to also putting these systems, and the anti-terrorism unit is specialized and well known to the community? That would be of great importance to them, to the community. And I think I would like to commend the government for how far they have gone. At least I would say there is very minimal terrorism, apart from whatever there has been discussed about internal politics and torture and maybe some bit of brutality. But with terrorism, I would give them a very good mark concerning the way they have handled it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Faith. And
I have one more to conclude. Then the government, if the government can strengthen the border security, you find that most of the terrorists, most of the people that do bad acts get into the country, and they might not be necessarily citizens of the country, but they are getting in with their own ideologies, and they want to take over. And I think that would do us good if the border security is more vigilant. Thank you so much.
Faith, for that, you mentioned rather important things, including border security. You talk about increasing community policing, but also it is important to note that at the moment we have a series of offices in our villages, including chairpersons, LOC1s and their committees. We have Gombolola security officers, parish security officers, DSOs and PSOs, and it is important to note that these people should be there and indeed are competent enough to be active, but also do their job very well and to the required standard. Francis, solutions, because we can't survive with terrorism, and if not, how do we do that? Francis.
Just like Faith has put it, St. Alison, the issue of awareness is very key. And this we are looking at community policing, not policing when there is a threat, but continuous policing. 2, building at that situations. Here, there is a time when we had the vigilantes in communities. That is for Kasese after the 1996 attack, we had vigilantes. Then we have to put a system, a conflict early warning system through that we can use to report through the VSOs, GISOs, and that ISO arrangement. That system is very critical. And then we need to explore the advantage of having cameras, CCTV cameras having installed. To me, these cameras should be able to provide information that can be acted on, not giving us post-mortem information. It should be able to show a red sign, this is what is happening, and we are able to deploy, but not giving us information when the matter has passed. Because when it fills up, it gets to the source and deletes. So it could be one opportunity that we can go on. Of course, there are 4 things that are supposed to be done: prevention, protection, pursuing the persons or the rebels if they have attacked, and then responding. But also, lastly, from my side, all this being said, we have challenges to preventing terrorism. One is the porous borders, like Faith has put it. We have porous borders, especially the borders of Uganda and Sudan, and the whole stretch of the Mpondwe, Uganda, Mpondwe, Congo border in Kasese. Very porous borders. Wars are this, the other side, so the spillovers are here. The Abakonzo, the other side, the Abakonzos in Kasese. It is not easy to identify. The other, I think, is the issue, the other challenge to terrorism is to preventing is the issue of community journalism. With this WhatsApp, people are sending any information, you find it everywhere. So there's no classified information here. And the one challenge in it is that on WhatsApp, someone even sent something that went on 10 years back. They post it and you find it causing havoc along. So it is an effect. And then the other challenge is the reliance on local and reliable sources. There are people who will just come up and say this has happened, and you find everyone is going by that. It was in my village, people are saying, hey, people passed here in the night. It was a big group, and everyone was on tension for 3 days. We weren't sleeping because someone had brought that. Then the compliances. Communities are overexposed to security agencies. Like I've told you, Kasese has been in war and war and war. People are complacent. When you fire a bullet, it's a normal bullet. When you fire a bullet, it's a normal bullet. So there is that kind of compliance. And then the national level extension to, at national level, we have engaged in security of other countries, in protecting other countries. As yes, this is but is the rebels in these other countries that again coming back to terrorize us because they feel we are hindering their missions in other countries. And then the mix of politics in managing terrorism. This week, there were alerts that there is unsuspected terrorism in Kampala because of the November 2020, the November 201 attacks. But now when there is a lot of threat, again, someone is also doing other things saying, no, this is propaganda. We can go even and run on because of these anti-corruption campaigns. So there is a mix of politics. They will even say Museveni is creating tension in Kampala to control certain things. And lastly, is the issue of protection of reporters. I have seen people passing. I've not identified them. Now they will say, okay, let us go. Take us. Even when it is being acted upon, they will say, we got this information. So these are the things that I want to go for. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Francis, for that rather elaborate recommendation package for us, and indeed for anyone out there that has a thing or to go about this particular vice in our community. Friends, our time is very much fast spent. When I look here, we have about 8 minutes to get out of here. I see, Faith, you have a hand up, and you're going to have an opportunity to say something, but I will say let's use these 8 minutes. Let's have like a minute and a half for each one of us to really give us a final comment on this particular issue as we look to get out of here. I'll start with you, Faith, and continue to the rest of the panel. Yes, Faith, in a summary way, your final remarks and perhaps the reaction you want to make.
Okay, thank you so much. I basically wanted to also add on the solutions before making my final remark. I think we also need to think about use of advanced security systems. As our brother said, he gave us the ratio of a policeman to the citizens or the people living in the country, and we saw that they are overwhelmed by the work. They cannot be everywhere. But what if we find the government putting some automatic security system, whereby if you, especially in crowded places, whereby when someone passes by with a weapon or something that is deadly, it can maybe do a siren kind of sound so that people get alerted. I think that would be my addition. And then I would conclude by saying that the situation in the country is fairly managed by the security organs, even when they are having so many challenges. I believe that they are doing their best. But I believe that the most important to stop terrorism or to almost eliminate it is the community getting active, involved. First of all, being aware of terrorism and that it exists, and the possible ways they can identify and curb the vice of terrorism. It starts with the community and it starts with mindset change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith, for that addition and for the amazing views. I see, Alison, you have a hand up. Briefly, in about a minute, your reaction and your final remarks. Please unmute. Please unmute. Unmute, Alison. I can't hear you.
Yes, Philip.
Yes, now I hear you.
Now, there is something we have not realized among the public. The issue of reluctance. Once they issue warning, you find within 2 weeks, all ministries, you find all offices, supermarkets are checking. But when after 2 to 3 weeks, 1 month, nothing happens, they just go back to the normal business of no checking. They don't bother to know who has passed, who has entered in. So there's that problem. Then if you enter a large gathering and they have not checked you, just know anytime there could be a problem. Then borders, what we call the public transport or taxis are not vigilant. Borders, I think they should be educated. They shouldn't be delivering these packages to unknown people. So they need to sensitize people in the public sector, public transport. Then when you look at our jam, you find you're in a jam of like maybe 500 vehicles. In the middle, there is a petroleum truck. What happens if something happens to the truck? So the government needs to check that, either to allocate hours of those such vehicles to pass through town or allocate their routes where they can pass. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you so much, Alison, for those views and for the comment you make on that particular. Yes, Mike, you had a hand up and I want to make a reaction, but also your final remarks in about a minute.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. I wanted to say that as a country, we should be having an independent security system to give us alerts that such a thing is likely to happen. What makes it worse is that the population, especially the urban populations, are growing at exponential rates and need a lot of policing. But again, we have budgets which are tailored to a number of things, excluding the possibility that terrorism will take place. For how long shall we be relying on United States and other developed countries to give us alerts that Kampala is likely to be attacked? I think that is being at the mercy of terrorists. Another thing that my colleagues have talked about is the traffic jam. You know, Uganda has not really taken it very seriously to decongest cities like Kampala. One time I was standing at Entebbe, the beginning of Entebbe Road, that is around Stairs. We used to have a certain eating place called Stairs up there. And I was there for about 30 minutes watching police officers were removing people from the road, telling them not to move. The place is congested because His Excellency, the President, was moving from Nakasero State House and moving to Entebbe. People were there about 30 minutes. Now, I wondered how a president is going to move in such a jam. And if a terrorist was around, I think that would have been a lot of chaos. So we should also look at, it also has something to do with the development. These things go hand in hand. We need the democratization of countries. We need the serious development. And by the way, the root cause, the major root cause of terrorism is denying people democracy, denying people freedoms, denying people liberty to live like citizens. When you terrorize your people, you create a contradiction. They oppose you automatically. It's a reaction. So you cannot say these are terrorists when you are also you are a root cause of the terrorism. I was giving you an example. Countries like Israel, like United States, where voting is free and fair. You don't find such cases of terrorism internally. If it comes, then it comes externally. Like we know what happens in the United States is that there are collaborators in the Middle East. And those who don't like the Americans or feel that America is too powerful and they want to reduce that power will use terrorism from within the Middle East to come and bomb some areas in the United States. However, all in all, freedom, democracy, people should be free. There should be decongesting of cities, and that one you can keep the monitor. And then we should also build an internal mechanism, a local component to know we are likely to be attacked on such and such a day, so that we give ourselves enough preparation. Thank you. That is my contribution, and I think I want to say bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mike, for that submission. Francis, your final remarks, briefly.
Thank you so much. From my side, I will also add a small little rejoinder that the borders, most of the borders, like we said, are very porous and they are the entry points for terrorists. But in most cases, all borders have URA checkpoints and parking yards. It is my prayer that always expedites vehicles that carry inflammable materials and liquids. Otherwise, a single vehicle can burn an entire town. And to a terrorist, once they have done that, it is a plus for them. Thank you so much.
Happy Francis Mohindo, thank you so much for the amazing views and for making time to join us today on this conversation. Faith Luggo, thank you so much for your amazing views and for making time to join us. And Mike Kasoola and Alison Kwizera, thank you so much for making time to join the conversation today. And to you, our viewers, both live and on the internet, thank you so much for joining us. It is 20 Voices on Civic Space TV. Special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance for putting all this together, and special thanks to the technical team that works day in and day out to make sure this work is out there very well and on time. From us, we say good evening, and may you have freedom always.